Good evening and welcome everybody. Getting settled in here. My name is Zachary Steele. I am the founder and executive director of Broadleaf Writers. On behalf of Broadleaf Writers, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of our Right Now series. This is an ongoing series that we have over the course of the year, and we are in the process of scheduling quite a few more for the rest of this calendar season. We do have two others coming up that I would like to mention. Coming up in June, Jessica Bowers, who is a member of the Broadleaf Board of Directors, a marketing consultant, and a writer, will be doing a workshop on marketing as a writer, focusing on areas such as TikTok and Instagram and how best to leverage both of those as an author and to build following. And I believe, if I understand correctly, after she's done that, she's looking to follow that up with one in person sometime later in the year. So be on the lookout for that. Hopefully you'll join us for that one. And then in July, on July 8th, we are actually going to be at Eagle Eye Books in Decatur with Jeffrey Dale Lofton, and we're going to be discussing fictionalized memoirs and the pitfalls and process of making sure that you capture history without losing the fictional aspects of it and so forth. It's going to be a great conversation, and we will be in person for that one. So we're happy to be over at Eagle Eye again, and books will be available for you to purchase and have Jeffrey sign. And if you are not already on our newsletter list, you can go to our website at broadleafwriters.com, sign up for the newsletter, and you'll get updates on upcoming programs. Of course, you can follow us on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, and we even have a fledgling TikTok account. I'm very grateful to not be the one running that because I know nothing about TikTok. But anyway, in addition to our Right Now series, of course, we have other programming that we do. And this year, we're also very excited about the fact that our annual conference, this will be our 8th annual conference, will be returning to the Decatur Library where it started on September 23rd, 24th this year. And of course, that's 2 days of panels and workshops, one-on-one pitch and mentoring sessions, plenty of opportunities to meet and chat with your fellow attendees and our speakers. Lunch is provided as part of the registration, and that's always a fun time to be able to get to know people better. And we very much look forward to having a good time. We focus on the fun, we focus on the inspiration, and we hope that you will join us and leave charged and ready to write. So if you would like more information on that, again, broadleafwriters.com, and there's a tab there for the 8th annual Broadleaf Writers Conference. Our list of speakers is there, our list of agents is there and growing, and we will have further updates throughout the year. So that's what we have coming up, but we are here tonight to talk with authors Dawn Major and Helen P. Bradley, who are going to discuss one of my favorite topics, which is the writing community and the power that is within that writing community and how it can lift and assist writers, and also a little bit about how they connected through a writer's community. But in case you guys don't know who these people are, and I'm guessing you probably do, but just in case, we're going to read their bios. I'm very happy to have you both here. I do want to say, because I've known you both for a while, and it's good to see you both on the screen together. And I'm so excited about the books that you have out, and I look forward to hearing what you have to say tonight. Yeah. Dawn Major received her MFA in creative writing from the Etowah Valley Writing Program at Reinhardt University. She got her BA in English from Kennesaw State University and a creative writing certificate from Emory Continuing Education. She was awarded the James Dickey Fellowship and acted as editorial assistant for the James Dickey Review. She's won the Dr. Robert Driscoll Award for Excellence in Writing on regional themes and the Faculty Choice Award also for Excellence in Writing. Her published work may be found at Elder Mountain, a Journal of Ozark Studies, Georgia Gothic Anthology, Springer Mountain Press, Southern Literary Review, 5 Points, a Journal of Literature and Art, James Dickey Review, Sanctuary Journal, Sediments of Literary Arts Journal, and Family Life Publications. She is a member of the Atlanta Writers Club, Broadleaf Writers, Georgia Writers Association, and the Horror Writers Association. Got a little ahead of myself there. She provides editorial assistance on the works of the late Southern author William Gay, whom she also enjoys lecturing about at literary conferences. To learn more about Dawn Major, visit her website at www.dawnmajor.com, where she shares her work, collaborations, and advocates for Southern authors.
Thank you.
Helen Bradley.
Like a radio announcer.
Thank you. I've been working on my radio voice. www. I'm working on that. Thank you very much. Oh, Helen P. Bradley is a native of Bethune, South Carolina, has lived all of her adult life in Savannah, where she headed a nationally recognized victim advocacy program in the district attorney's office. Inspired by the resilience of thousands of crime victims and their families, she spearheaded passage of a dozen pieces of legislation, including the Georgia Crime Victims Bill of Rights and a crime victim compensation program. Familiar with the Me Too movement before it became a catchphrase, Helen also served on the boards of several child advocacy, domestic violence, and sexual assault organizations. A former newspaper journalist, Helen has written curricula, that's a fun word, essays and articles for the National Organization for Victim Assistance, the National Center for Victims of Crime, and the Georgia Victim Assistance Academy. Her writing has been published in the Savannah Anthology, Savannah Magazine, the Savannah Morning News, and Law Enforcement Magazine. She volunteered for 10 years with Deep Center, a Savannah youth literacy program that won a 2015 National Endowment for the Arts Award. And with that, once again, I welcome you both here. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us. That's impressive.
Glad to be here.
What was that, Dawn?
I said impressive bio, Helen.
Impressive bios for you both.
This is the first time we actually have had like spokes, like I've heard her voice, but we've been we met through Broadly, obviously. Yes. And I'm a member of like a zillion, but Broadleaf has a special place in my heart because it's such a supportive community. Did you want me to just start rambling on, or did you want to probably have questions?
I do, and actually, you're just leading right into it, which is like the first.
The first,
yeah, that's fine. Good. The first question was just I wanted to know how you two met. So Dawn, go right ahead.
I mean, everybody's connected, it's all like you have to build that writing community. It's so important. I found Moonshine through Claire Matura, who is with Southern Literary Review, and I had some issues with my other publisher. I won't go into that. And she said, hey, you ought to try this, you ought to try Jean. And then I think I posted it. And then Helen, you reached out to me because you were part of Broadly. And that's I think you texted me or whatever. I think that's how we met. So I hope to see you in September at the conference. Yes.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, actually, it was a year ago that I was looking on the Broadleaf Writers Facebook page, and I saw an announcement. Congratulations to Dawn Major, who's publishing her debut novel by Moonshine Cove Publishing. So I immediately connected with Dawn and messaged her and said, I'm not really stalking you. I am just wanting
yeah, that's right.
what you're doing. And then I was able to present my book to the same publisher as Dawn and got a contract just as she has. And we have been publishing buddies ever since.
Yeah, very. Yeah, it was pretty immediate. I mean, really quick. In fact, so my book was going to come out like 2 months before your book.
A month before mine.
Yeah, and then of course it all got pushed up. It got pushed up. Yeah.
Be proud of that. I mean, that's a rarity in the publishing industry to get pushed up rather than pushed back. So that's pretty good.
Yeah.
So yes, so Dawn was 1 month ahead of me. So she was leading the way and letting me know what to expect, what questions, what I was going to submit to the publisher. And she would say things like, oh, have you done your sell sheet? And I would say, not only have I not done it, I have no idea what it is.
I didn't either.
She would send me information about the various aspects of publishing and just was a tremendous help. We've been supportive of each other.
Yeah, sometimes it's just the simple things of like when I was in that last week of editing and I was freaking out, she would just send me like very nice messages like thinking about you. And that, I mean, it's simple. It doesn't seem like it and it's a big deal, but it really helped, having that support.
Yeah, you used the phrase publishing buddy,
Mhm.
and I'm curious. I hadn't actually heard that phrase before, so I'm curious to hear what that means to you. I mean, what that is and what it means to you both.
I guess we invented the term, Helen.
Well, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I am hip and up on everything.
No, I
So
think
it's very possible that I missed it.
no, I think that's just something we kind of came up with. And I mean, you sent me like this lovely candle and a card, and I've sent her card. It's just, it's like I said, little things. Because especially I think with first time like books, like your first book, you don't really know what to expect. And so, like, I do have people like Robert Watney, who was published with them too, and Claire. So I could kind of, reach out to them and go, what's this mean? And sometimes I think it's better to have another author to talk to rather than the publisher, because like you could say, because you feel kind of stupid, like not knowing what this is about. And so whenever I'd learn something, I would just share that with Helen because I was like, I don't know what this is. And some publishers don't, it's like they give you, we had a very short window, you know, very short window to like do. We had the contract, it was like, could have been sending the stuff to start working on then, like sell sheets and stuff. But it was really like towards the very end before the book came out. And then you're like frantically trying to do everything. So I was like, wanted to prepare Helen for the hell that was coming her way.
Yes, actually, our publisher said, right after I got the contract, he said, I do not want you to look at this manuscript until a month before publishing. And I'm like, oh, okay. He said, first of all, this is the book we want. We don't want you changing it. I said, okay, I can understand that. And so then the month before, the 5 or 6 weeks before, it was just frantic having to get everything together and do edits. And let me tell you, there were many a night that Dawn and I were messaging each other going, hey, how do we do this? Oh my gosh, I need help
Yeah.
on this. And we just went back and forth. I can remember one night going at 10:30 going, okay, I'm sitting in the bed eating chocolate and I need to talk to you right now. And she's like, okay, what do you need? And we just communicated back and forth. And she's a lifesaver. And
Aw.
you know what's bizarre? We have not met in person, so I
No.
cannot wait until the conference in September because this woman and I are going to celebrate and have fun.
Well, we are. And then you started using the term steel magnolias, and I was like, oh, I'm a steel magnolia. I love it. She's
I
just,
know. I call her a steel magnolia. I said, you can do this. You're a steel magnolia. And she's like, I'll take that name.
I like it.
Hey, good one. That's excellent. Well, I have lots of questions about writing community and about everything that you guys do together, but I would be remiss in just kind of glossing over the opportunity to hear a little bit about the books that you both recently had come out. And if you would just tell us a little bit about the book. And I mean, we've obviously heard a little bit about how the two of you helped one another in terms of getting published and the process going through. But Dawn, your book is Bystanders.
The bystanders.
And the bystanders, and tell us a little bit about that, if you would, please.
So the bystanders is inspired by my time in southeast Missouri. When we moved from Los Angeles, I tell people that like moving from Los Angeles in the late 70s, early 80s was like to rural farmland, horse farms was like moving to Mars. It was a very traditional, it's a real setting. I like to use real settings. And it's one of the oldest, settlements west of the Mississippi. So there's people that were still speaking Pawpaw French, grandparents that didn't speak English but only spoke German. It was a very unique place, and they still have the French colonials there off the Mississippi. It's more like a southern setting, I'd say, than I always consider them to be more like Southerners and more Westerners. And I think it's because it's part of the northernmost part of the Mississippi Delta, and they were originally part of the Louisiana Purchase. So there's a rich history of like tradition there. And I was a complete outsider. So it's like they're linked narratives, but it's chronological, and I like playing around with different characters. There's a lot of what was I trying to say? My elevator pitch really is the dark coming of age story where like people try to, a family that's dysfunctional really just tries to hit reset by moving. And as you know, you pack up those skeletons with you. So it's interestingly enough, and there's kind of a link that I found with Helen was that, you know, there is domestic abuse in here and stuff. And so that we got into like deeper conversations, you know, because of our books and kind of what she was writing about. You know, they're different books completely, obviously, but there's those elements that are similar. So like, you know, we become friends. But anyway, that's my spill.
Excellent. And Helen, Breach of Trust is your novel, and tell us a little bit about that.
So Breach of Trust is a novel set in Savannah and Tybee Island, Georgia. And basically, a young woman who is a crime victim advocate is thrown into a tailspin when her young male employee accuses their boss, the powerful elected district attorney, of sexual harassment. So it is a story about this woman who works with crime victims. So you're going to see some domestic violence in there, a murder. I'd like to also point out there's some humor in there. There's some lightness to keep you going. It can be tough. So it's about this woman's journey about speaking out and speaking up for justice, both for her employee and for other victims. And the backstory is about, I don't want to tell you too much, but the backstory is about some trauma that she had while she was in college. And she did not speak out at that time. And she was not strong enough to speak out. But now she is on a journey to make sure there's justice for victims. So it's a woman, a quirky woman. She's kind of spacey and funny at times. She overdoes it sometimes by going too far, trying to save the world. So it's been quite a journey to write this book. And I've really been inspired by the hundreds of crime victims that I've worked with over the years. It is absolutely amazing, the people that we've met. And I've gotten a lot of comments from victim advocates about, wow, this book brings back a lot of memories of some of the amazing, strong people that we've helped over the years. Families of murder victims, domestic violence victims, child molestation victims, burglary victims even. So it's a story that I wanted to tell, and it took me a long time to write it and to tell it. And it was both cathartic to do it as well as sometimes stressful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Well, cool.
I forgot to show you my book.
Oh, there it is right there.
That is a picture of the Talmadge Bridge that crosses into South Carolina from Savannah, Georgia.
I like that cover a lot.
Yeah, I'm pleased with the cover. And Dawn and I talked about
We talked about the cover too. He sent me like what, 3 mock-ups or 4 mock-ups.
Yeah, like, did you like this one? No, I like that one. What do you think? And anyway, I'm excited. This is finally out in the world.
Yes, me too.
So you should be. I mean, it's such a wonderful moment to hold that book in your hand for the first time, and then to go about showing it to everybody, which is such a great thing. And it thrills me to no end to know that any part of your story ties back to this specific writing community. And I think that's fantastic. Yeah, I'm curious. You've touched on this some, because you two definitely have a connection both through the publisher that you have and just through getting to know one another and supporting one another. And this is kind of a 2-part question, but I am curious in what ways you've mentioned some, but in what ways you support one another, and then also if you were giving advice to another writer, what would you recommend they do to help support other authors and find support themselves?
Well, first of all, writing can be a very lonely task as we sit there staring at our computers and, procrastinating and not doing what we're supposed to. So you've heard some of the ways Dawn and I supported each other, but this book of mine would not exist without my writing critique group.
Mhm.
So I have to give a shout out to them, and that is Judy Bean, Susan Earl, and Beverly Willett. And they are phenomenal writers and supporters and dear friends. And they slogged through these manuscripts with me for years, literally. I
Yeah.
know they're like, oh my gosh, probably don't even want to read the book. But so to answer your question about what we should do, I say find one person. You can find a Dawn. You can find 3 or 4 or 10 people.
No more dawns.
And then share with each other. So
Yeah.
sort of the way our group works is we meet every Wednesday morning. We're the Wednesday writers, and we bring in 5 to 10 pages of whatever we're working on. And we take that home, we critique it, we make comments, and we come back the next week and we discuss the issues, the suggestions, the recommendations, the edits. I mean, this writing group helped me from everything from, punctuation craziness
Mhm.
to the title of the book. So I guess I encourage people to reach out to Broadleaf Writers Association, reach out to people in your community and figure out how can I get support? Because it is huge. I couldn't have done it by myself. And I couldn't have written the book without my writing group. I couldn't have published the book without someone like Dawn.
Aw. I will reiterate that the writing group aspect, and I've been through many. This book started out for NaNoWriMo. I did that for a month, and then some of it went through continuing ed. And then when I was at Emory, I did like their certification. Eventually, I went through my mentors at Reinhardt, and then and Atlanta Writers Club. I'm not with that group right now because I'm just moving in a different direction. But the women there, we would meet on Wednesdays. And they're all in the back of the book. I think them all. And then also with the people that were in my MFA program, because the Reinhardt's MFA program was really, it's a low residency and you meet online. It's very small. So we didn't have that many people in our group. And I meet with one person who came in after me and 3 people that were part of that group. And we're still meeting, and every single one, and my husband and my family, everyone has read this book 100 times, like
Mhm.
everyone has had a piece in it, and sometimes you get mad at them sometimes, but also you get really valuable information. I think that's probably one of the best pieces of advice. I totally agree with Helen on that.
Cool. Yeah, I love your points about we both have mentioned this at one point in time about writing being a solitary thing, but that you cannot do it alone. And that's where the importance of community comes in, and being able to find little pockets of it to find support and to support others. And I do definitely recommend that if you're going to look for support, that you are prepared to give it out equally, because
Yeah,
that is
Arthur
definitely definitely necessary. It's interesting because the writing community, I gotta make sure I know what year we're in now. 4 years ago is something a little bit different than it was then. Is that right? More than it was 4 years ago. 4 years ago, when it came to programming for us, we were looking for places to go in person for every single program and every single way to get our members together. And if the pandemic brought us anything positive, it's this exactly right here. Being able to learn and understand how we can virtually bring programming and meetings and have conversations with one another and support one another. And I mean, you two have had plenty of support, I'm sure, through Zoom, or at least through the phone. It doesn't matter, but I'm curious for both of you. If a writer is looking to participate in something online, I'm trying to think how to phrase this. I guess where do they start? Where do they find these programs? How do they get involved in these programs?
I mean, I think that, any of the number of things that I've just spoke about, like whether it's through an MFA program, or if you don't want to spend $5 zillion on that, um, the writers associations, and when you meet people that you connect with there, then you can form your own groups. I mean, you're right. I used to meet in person, and now everything's on Zoom, and it's great because I think it actually expands the community further out. So, I mean, if let's say, I don't, Atlanta Writers Club is Atlanta based, but like you can still have people from all over, even Horror Writers Association. There's people up in Tennessee and I think South Carolina. And I mean, there's just all, in the South, there might be regional, but I just think you have to find that connection with people. And do you do a conference, see who, who's kind of maybe even the same stages as you, or possibly even a little further so they can give you some advice on what to expect. But you got to be brave, and you got to meet people. You have to put yourself out there,
And there are tons of writing groups online, writers helping writers, various writers associations. And you have to filter through. Some of it's not helpful, but there's not a day goes by that I don't find some little nugget that, oh, that's interesting. I think I'll try that. So you can just type in writers support groups, even.
Or Facebook too.
Yeah, and so a lot of different organizations, authors groups. I can't even think of the names of all of them, but they're author groups and writing groups, and they're online, so you can just get what you need. And I've certainly gone on there and asked the question, "What do you think about this?" and get tons of responses.
Yeah, I think it's better to stay with like smaller groups personally, not bigger groups. I've test drove like some of these. I went to one where like everyone was expected to read out loud their entire like 20 or 30 pages, and it was like a group of 8 people. And at the end, I was like, oh my God, I'm never going to. So don't let one discourage you if it's not a fit for you right then and there. Keep on looking until you find the right one.
Yes, exactly.
And once you do, covet that space, because there's some I'd like to get into, but people get very guarded with their group too, So when you get into a good one, stick with it.
Yeah, I was actually gonna kind of lead into the writing group, since you both mentioned that you participate or have participated in writing groups. I'm curious how you met and formed your writing group, and do you always meet in person, or do you have some sort of in-person Zoom hybrid kind of thing?
You want to go first, or do you want? I don't care. I will tell you, Atlanta Writers Club has a list of and it's by genre, by when they're meeting, the meeting times and everything. They have like this big, spreadsheet, and then you just reach out to the person who's like in charge of that particular group and say, hey, do you have a space? Now, sometimes they might want to do a little bit like a sample reading. And then there's, if it's a newer writer, like I don't want to be in a situation where I am having to do a lot of I'm editing for grammar or punctuation. Like I want to be with someone that's sort of, my same where I am with my writing career. So it was perfect for me because these are people I graduated with. My most recent group is people that, and we were in classes together. So we were just ideal fit, really. But yeah, does Broadleaf offer you guys have separated groups throughout the year?
Writing groups?
Yeah, that by genre or something. I bet that some of the Broadleaf members have formed their own groups.
No, we don't. Yeah, we don't, but we're actually actively working on a way to help facilitate people finding writing groups a little bit better. I mean, ideally some type of digital community board type effect where it was up to the individuals to post it and to manage it. But yeah, I mean, look for that, because we're definitely going to have something soon.
But it's something that you could pursue. You're a member, pursue it with other members. It's not necessarily something that you have to facilitate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. Exactly.
So I'm at my writing group, and it's changed and evolved. People have moved away. But you said in my bio that I help mentor middle school students through a program called DEEP. So that was obviously during the school year. And they offered one summer writing groups. So they had a poetry group and a nonfiction group and a fiction group. Well, I had been a journalist, so I joined the nonfiction group. And the very last thing I wrote was something that had really happened in my victim assistance career. And they all said, we want to know more about that. We really want to know more about that. So that group probably had, I don't know, 10 people in it. And 4 of us got together and formed a writing group for fiction. And I had not written much fiction in my life, so I learned so much. But that's how we got started. It was a bigger group that was supposed to just meet for the summer, and then a few of us got together and started meeting. And like I say, the diversity of the group has been wonderful. You know, we had some really young people in there and some older people and people with different perspectives. And that's when I started really focusing on fiction, because I didn't, you know, I'd been a journalist. So I knew that if I wrote something, I would have to have every detail exactly right. And I didn't want to do that. You know, my memory's not that great. So I started fictionalizing my work, and that's how we got started. And I will tell you too, that those kids in middle school inspired me.
Yeah.
Because they wrote difficult stories, and it inspired me to tell my stories, and to fictionalize information, but to take some hard subjects and pursue them.
Yeah, it's really interesting in my experiences with the writing that kids have done. It's just it's fiction, but it is this unfiltered truth from their
Yes.
point of view, from what they have experienced to that point. And it can be so incredibly powerful. And I'm so happy to hear that, you know, it inspires you, because it certainly has inspired me to stretch myself a little bit more.
Yes.
I've been involved in stuff like that. That's wonderful. It's such a great program that you're doing. One of the aspects of a writing community is programming and getting to meet people at programs. None can be bigger than an annual conference, and I'm curious, wherever it was that you were at, what your first conference experience was like, that first time of being there, and what it left with you. And then as a sort of second part to that, what would you recommend to somebody going to their first conference?
My first conference, I don't know that I should say the name because I don't want to be despairing, but
You don't have to say the name. You can
okay. I did not have a very good experience at my first conference. It was not broadleaf though, because I always have great experiences at broadleaf. And I'll tell you, one of the reasons was I didn't feel like you know, you do the pitches, you can sign up for the pitch, you can sign up for the query letter critique, you can sign up for like what first page or whatever. But what I didn't like is like everything costs on top of the initial costs, and it can be quite expensive. And then when I went in to do I think it was my query letter, and you got like 5 minutes and everybody's just all tense and stuff in there. The people, they were from New York publishers, but I think they were more like interns that just came in. They didn't know some of the terms that I had in there, like gritlit, or like some kind of more like regional based terms that we would use. And so that made me really mad. And I left actually. But you know, it's sort of like the critique thing. You gotta test these things and see which one works best for you. One thing I love about broadleaf is you know what you're gonna get. You sign up, it's very organized, you know you're gonna get this. And you're not gonna nickel and dime me, because writers don't make any money either. So
No.
let's just be realistic. Or some do, probably the 1% out there. So that's, you know, that was my experience. And what was the second part of that question?
Just advice that you would give, recommendation you would give to somebody going to their first conference.
Yeah, I would pay attention to what is included with what you're going to get. Are you paying a fee for it and then paying a fee for every little thing? And also what I really like, I mean, obviously I'm a big fan of broadleaf, but I like how you guys give us the opportunity to match up with and like an agent, and the match up sort of like with your genre. They do that at some places. I think they did that. I think they did another one, but that I liked everyone that was there, and that's also important. I like to go in there and Google the people that are coming to these conferences that are going to be speaking to you, because they might not be really your cup of tea. So, you know, you got to get what you're paying for. That's probably the advice I'd give.
Yeah, I agree. What about you, Helen? What was your first conference experience like, and what advice would you give?
Well, years ago, I went to Rome, Georgia to a writers conference,
Oh.
and it was fun. And I heard wonderful authors, you know, Kay Gibbons, I remember, was one of the featured speakers, but it was more academic. So it wasn't really focused. They didn't have little groups where you could talk about your query letter or your pitch,
Yeah.
or meet with agents. So it was delightful to hang around with a bunch of cool authors.
Mhm.
But after that, it was 2019 with Broadleaf was my first real conference. And I just learned so much. I mean, I still have my yellow notebook where I took all the notes and the program and everything. So I learned so much. As a matter of fact, you know, I did a pitch, you know, in the 10-minute deal, and with your publisher, Zach, and he did not accept my book, but he gave me some advice that literally changed my novel.
Oh, yeah.
And so in that 10 minutes, I was able to come back to my writing group who couldn't go that year, and they were just fascinated. What did you learn? What did you learn? And, you know, he said a sentence or two that helped change the trajectory of my novel. And that was important. So I was terrified, you know, to talk to him for 10 minutes. I was like, oh, what am I going to say? I can't do it this quickly. Oh, I don't know. So my advice to people going to a writing conference is what Dawn said: check it out, make sure it's something that that will relate to what you're doing in writing, and then to be courageous. And that means do the hard stuff. Even if you're shy, go up and talk to people, go to lunch with people you don't know, and hang out with these people, because they're in the same boat, you know. We need to hang out together and learn from each other and support each other.
It's funny, Helen, that you said that you talked to Zach's publisher, because he read my manuscript. He didn't accept it, and I didn't like what he said because it hurt my feelings, but he was right. And I went back, and using the advice that he gave me, I went back and I addressed that. And I think it was solid advice. I don't think it was ready at that point, actually.
Right,
So
right.
we've been on the same path together. We're inevitable that we were going to become publishing buddies.
Yeah,
By the same people.
I will tell you, he has a lot of experience, and he knows what he's talking about, and he has, Helen, he's done that to me too. So it's really fantastic, and I'll actually use that as a bigger framing for writing community, because you never know who you're going to get to talk to at a conference or in a writing group, or who's going to change what you're doing, change your perspective to the point that you actually see it a little bit better. So that's wonderful. I just want to say real quick that I have a kind of 1A and 1B experience on my first conference, but I kind of had, Dawn, your experience at my very first one. And it was actually, the whole memory of it was defined by one agent from New York who got up and gave this sort of ranting speech to everybody, and ended it by saying, when we get to the end of all of this, there will only be one publisher, it'll be Random House, and one author, it will be Stephen King. So I don't think anybody left there with a lot of hope.
Oh, that was warm and fuzzy.
I know. Oh my goodness. Yeah. But so I guess, you know, it is important to remember that you're not always going to have 100% positive experiences with it, but to learn and to try to work hard to find the right people and the right places and the right organizations and the right conferences that suit your needs. And I'm elated that both of you have found some of that with what we're doing. And thank you. I will take you guys on the road to talk about Broadleaf anytime.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, we're not getting paid for this.
No,
Okay.
unpaid
So
advertising. Yes, ma'am.
Zach, here's the thing. You said take it on the road. You know what that means?
What, road trip?
Savannah.
Savannah.
I mean,
I know, right? I
I'm
know,
ready.
right?
It's a big state, and we need Atlanta, and we need
Mhm.
down south. So come on down.
You have told me that before, and I need to take you up on that. If for no reason than to give myself an excuse to be in Savannah for a few
Oh
days.
gosh,
Exactly.
I know.
I do have a question that's in here from the attendees, and for everybody there, if you do have a question, please use the Q&A function down at the bottom, and Don and Helen will be glad to take on your question. And this one is from Jeff, and he asks, if you all could join any writing group, past or present, what would it be? And with what famous or legendary authors? Oh my goodness, I know my answer on that one. Good
Um,
question, Jeff.
I mean, I love Elizabeth Strout. I like her how she structures her books. You know, like I like the setting, and then it's like, you know, it's linked narratives. That's someone who I would love to be part of. Oh my God, oh my God, wait a second. Grady Hendrix, in love with Grady Hendrix. Read everything Grady Hendrix said. Totally different though. There's totally different writers. Are you talking about my ideal writers in my group? Yeah, if I can mix those two together, maybe a little Stephen.
It said if you could join any writing group, I guess writing group past or present. So you get to choose writers, published writers, of
Oh yeah,
history that you might want to be in a writing group with. And who would it be
yeah.
if I got
Jackie
that right? If
Allison,
I got that wrong, Jeff, please let me know.
William Gay, of course. Yeah, a lot of dead people.
Yeah, well, I love Pat Conroy, so
Oh,
if I could,
cool.
talk to him, that would be phenomenal. Years and years and years ago, I was in a writing group that I failed to mention, Zona Rosa, which is a phenomenal group in Savannah and Atlanta and all over, run by Rosemary Danielle. So way back in the, late 80s and 90s, I guess, she had a monthly group that was just phenomenal. We met all Saturday afternoon, like from 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock. And I remember Pat Conroy is a friend of hers and came to that group. And I said to him, I have one of your first books, which is called Boo. And he looked over at the fireplace and said, throw that book in the fire. It was terrible. So it helps me. And that was about his professor, I believe, at the Citadel. So it just helped me to know that even famous writers doubt themselves and don't always love all their works. And so he's, I'm a South Carolina girl, native, and he's a South Carolina native. So I cried the day he died.
I bet. Oh, it's funny you say that because I was just up in Maine and I went to Stephen King tour in Bangor, and that family does so much charity. It's unbelievable. But he threw Carrie away. Some of you guys know this from reading on writing, but he tossed it in the trash. And Tabitha, his wife, took it out. And that was the one that really set up his career. They were so poor, and he got a check for like $2,500 for that. And then, of course, it bombed. The book bombed, but then the movie really did well. So imagine that, him tossing Carrie away in the trash.
I guess the cautionary tale there is another important part of writing community is keep you from throwing away really good work. We've got another question from our attendees, and this one's from an anonymous attendee. Is it worthwhile to do a writing certificate, for example, Emory Universities or KSUs?
Okay, so I'll back up a little bit. I did yes and no. If you're not ready right now to do the full plunge and spend all your money, I was part of the professional writing program at KSU first, the Master's in Professional Writing program. And I took all the fiction classes they had, and then I was like, I'm not taking these other classes. I just only want to take fun classes, although it would have been good to have done some of those editing classes. Anyway, and then I quit. And then I was like, well, I'm not going to be a writer. Forget this. If I can't, because it's hard. And I sort of just gave up on writing for about 12 years. And then I was like, it was bugging and eating at me. It's like, if you can't have it exactly the way you want, then you're just not going to do it at all. That was my attitude. And so what Emory did for me is it reintroduced me to that. Now some people in there are, when you're not being graded, there's a different experience. So you can take it as far as you want there, or you can kind of only come the day that you're supposed to be doing your reading. And there's some good people I met in there. And then there's some people who are sort of, so the instructors were really good though, I say at Emory. I enjoyed them. And they gave me some great advice, but afterwards I was ready to do more. I wanted it. So it's like, it was a stepping stone for me.
Mhm.
Kennesaw is kind of, I think, similar to the one that they do at Emory too. So, but I did have to do a capstone. So, and so the chapter nativity was my capstone. So
Mhm.
all of those experiences lead to the final product, eventually.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Well, we've got a little bit of time left, so if you all have more questions, please do throw them in there, and we'll get to them if we can. I'm trying to think how to phrase this. I'm curious, both as somebody who has once out of a writing community myself, and that's the whole reason that Broadleaf exists, because I wanted a writing community, and also as the organizer and person who can make these kind of decisions. But I'm curious, with your experience in writing communities in general, not specifically this one, but just in general, is there something that's missing that you as a writer would like to see, would like to have, or if you could do it yourself, how would you do it to benefit writers? It's not a light question.
No, I mean, no, I know what's something that I want to do. I don't want to be like, if Helen wants to go first, so I don't want to like,
No,
it's something that I'm trying to do with Southern Red. I'm starting of a nonprofit, but it's taking forever. I want it to go beyond the Southern author and to be a collaborative space for Southern artists. So I like to match up people like, painters with writers and poems, like it doesn't have to just be authors, because you get inspiration from everywhere. And that's really what I want Southern Red to be about. If I ever get approved by the IRS, what I'd like to see more of, I need more reviews, guys. I need more, but like you do need that. And so like, you got to give back, and you do get so much more. I promise you, I promise. Like, it seems like a lot when we're like, oh, I got to read this book and do this review and interview, but it helps your own writing. You learn, from understanding someone else's work. So I think I'd like to see people get more back to their community. And Helen, I'm done with that.
Okay. Well, it's interesting you say that about not having just writers involved in a community, but having artists. So here's what's happened to me in the last month.
Oh,
There are a couple of art galleries who are carrying my book.
I love it.
I know. It's so exciting. So, as a matter of fact, an art gallery is hosting my launch party, which is on June 15th. And she said, you know what? My art gallery is new, your book is new. Let's bring the community together. So people will get to not just come see my book or maybe buy my book, but they're going to be able to check out wonderful art. Then on Tybee Island, there's an art gallery called the Irritable Pelican. And they carry a few local authors, and they readily agreed to carry my book, which made me so happy. And so I've been hanging out with these artists, and I mean, I cannot draw a stick man.
I'm either.
I can't do pottery.
Not even a circle.
But yeah, exactly. So you know what? It's a community of creative people, and it's just delightful to be around them and to learn from them. And they are so supportive that it's wonderful. So it's not just, authors, it's people who are making jewelry, making pottery, making beautiful paintings. So those two galleries have been some of my biggest supporters.
I love that. I mean,
That's really great.
I came to this kind of realization through William Gay and writing about his paintings and how connected that was to his writing. And then I got that opportunity with Georgia Center for the Book, Decatur Library, Lost Southern Voices. I love what they're doing at the Decatur Library on the fourth floor. Like they had the art of the cover, because these, this is art, and I think that's so neat. And just to bring writers and artists like into that same space, there's no reason for us to be separated, really.
Exactly.
So
There's
I think that's
speaking.
so cool that you're doing that. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I'm jealous.
that's really great. We have another question from Jeff, and this one is, do you all have any to live by advice or catchphrases to live by? For example, and one that he lives by from Dorothy Parker, the art of writing is about applying the ass to the chair. So do you have any kind of mantra? Or I love Dorothy Parker. That question about the writing group, Dorothy Parker and Mark Twain. I would love to have been, even if it was just all we did was talk writing, that would be fun. Anyway, but so you're not gonna be able to top Dorothy Parker, but do you have anything that personally drives you? Anything that you remind
I
yourself?
certainly need to take the advice of put the ass.
Yeah.
There is no doubt about that, because I can procrastinate with the best of them.
I
You know,
wish I
it's-
had some catchy phrase for Jeff.
I know,
I
it's-
really
it's-
do. Like I just froze. Like, right now, like after we get off this, I'll think of something great. Like,
No. I think there's a group that I wrote an essay for that got published, and it's talking about living boldly.
mhm.
So that means being brave when you don't feel brave, and just to have fun, not make it all work and no play. So, and also, I'm no young chicken. So to know that people over 50, over 60 can still do it, because I hear so many people talk about, well, I wish I'd written a book, and I'm like, why not start now? So live boldly, whatever that means to you.
I like live boldly. I'll spin off of
Mhm.
yours. I'm still in yours. One thing that I did when I was at Reinhardt is anytime an opportunity came up for me, because I was leaving banking and financial crimes. Okay. I was totally out of the loop. And so anytime opportunity would come through from the director, I would say yes. And even if I felt like what you said, live boldly, be brave and courageous, I was so uncomfortable. I would be like a judge on some middle grade, writing thing or contests and stuff. And I did not, I hadn't done any of that stuff, but then how are you going to know what it's going to be like? And then how are you going to meet these people? So I think there's a lot of power in saying yes. Now you'll get to a certain point in your career where you're like, I got to start saying no because then you're overwhelmed. But saying yes, especially when you're new, I think is really a good, don't make yourself uncomfortable. Yeah.
And
So I like
this-
your living bravely one. Yeah.
this is
Yeah,
not-
that
this
is a good one.
Not related to that question, but I'm going back to thinking about community and writing groups, and I forgot to mention accountability. If I didn't go to that writing group every week, I would just have all sorts of excuses not to write, but you can't show up in a writing group for
Yeah.
weeks not writing. So I just want to add to the conversation we had earlier, which is accountability is important, not just the support and guidance, but those writers keep me accountable.
Mhm.
Helen, you haven't done anything in the last 2 weeks. What's going on?
Oh yeah, that's great.
That's actually, I was going to ask, and I just had the time for the one more question here, but I get asked a lot about writing groups, and not even as much how to find them, but as in what to expect of them when you're in one. And I know it's going to vary from writing group, but I'm curious for both of you, how often do you meet, and how did you share work? I mean, was it as the work was as a manuscript was being written, or just little bits here and there?
Mhm.
How does it work? How did it work for you in your experience?
Well, my group meets in person every Wednesday morning. Now, of course, during COVID, we met online. So the way it works is we bring in writing and bring in copies of our writing and hand it out. And over the week, each of us will then look over that writing, that was given to us by another person and, you know, make comments and suggestions and ask questions. So then we come back and talk about it. So we come back and, you know, oh, these two people really think this, oh, the other one disagrees. You know, it's an interesting dialogue. So what the people need to do in a writing group is first do the work, which is read and make suggestions and care and be honest in a kind way,
Yeah.
because you can do that. You can be honest in a kind way. So it's just, and they keep me accountable. They keep me motivated. Many a times when I first started scribbling out this stuff years ago, I didn't know what I was doing. I was just like, oh, I'll write a scene. So I would write a scene, and then I'd go back. And then eventually, one of the hardest things for me was the structure of the novel. Remember, I've been a journalist, so I was used to writing short, snappy little articles. So just knowing that the writing group is there, and we don't miss a meeting. I mean, we're
Oh, good.
a consistent and dedicated group.
We meet monthly. Now, I used to do like the, you know, in-person thing, but this new group, one of my boutique people, she's up in New Jersey, you know, and then so it's like, it's just great that you can just, you don't know, it doesn't matter where you are. But we send work 2 weeks ahead of time. I think it's a good idea to have some like set rules and guidelines, and even about how you talk to people. Cause yeah, I've certainly had the, some cattiness before, not in this group, but like other groups where someone has said, I hate that character, you know, and you're like, oh, you know, you might get some of that. But I think most people are trying to be kind, or they don't mean it like that. I think back in the day, there were some really like, I think there's been a movement from what I hear from people that were in previous programs, like long time ago in schools and stuff, where it was just really competitive, and it's not, I don't feel that way. Like, you don't want to have that feeling. But yeah, pretty much it's 2 weeks before you meet, and we meet once a month. We send it, they don't send something every single time. Now, if there's, let's say there's a contest or something that someone wants to submit, or like they want you to read your query letter, and that's in between the actual workshop, then I'm willing to read that, you know, to help them. So there are circumstances where it might not be, you know, you might be doing stuff throughout the month too.
Yeah.
And we also share with each other wonderful writing tips that we found, or a great book that we read. You know, oh, this book, you know, they go back and forth in time. This is how they did this, how they structured it. Let me show you this book. And so we support each other in that way by, when we get information, we share it with the others.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that. And much though I would like to continue talking, we are up against time. And so I'm going to have to release you. As my friend Joe Davidge says at Georgia Center for the Book, I am going to release you from your author bondage and allow you to get on your way. But thank you very much for doing this, and for coming on, talking about for the community, and for supporting not just Broadleaf, but other writing organizations and other writing communities. It means a great deal to us. It means a great deal to the writers who are listening to you. And I wish you nothing but the best in your releases. Again, Dawn's book is The Bystanders, and Helen's book is Breach of Trust. And please go out and purchase these books, read them, review them, because that is very important, and share them with others.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you all to coming out, and thank you to everybody who is here, and I hope you all have a wonderful evening.
All right, bye guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.